Alright guys, welcome back. It is a super hot day here in the last week of July. Temperatures have been right at 100 all week, and of course the heat index is 105 to 110, so it's hot. So we've got the irrigation water going. Right now it's on my sweet potatoes. Yesterday we had it on my late melons through the poly pipe, watering through the poly pipe. I've showed you that before. But today I'm going to try to get a measurement and try to get an estimate on how much water we use and how much water is flowing through these poly pipe runs and through the holes and that kind of thing. We water with wells. We don't water out of the river. We turn the camera around. That's the levee, and the river is literally just right on the other side. Some farmers right here in our area do water out of the river, mostly with center pivots, not exclusively, but mostly. But just about everybody else, the majority of the irrigation in our area is going to be from wells, and the wells are shallow. You know, our water table is high, looking at probably no more than 50-foot depth to find good water. Most of these irrigation wells are pretty much the same. A lot of them are put in by one of 2 or 3 companies, and so most of the motor size, pump size, all that kind of stuff is casing size is all pretty much the same. So the wells that I use are pretty much just the standard irrigation wells for our area, and I can't even tell you the pump size and all that. I'd have to go back and look all that up. But what I can tell you, and what I'm going to try to do, is give you a flow, a gallon per minute estimate on these wells. Okay, the water's flowing. We've got one hole in every row, middle. I had pre-watered it early in the season and soaked in my herbicide, and so when I did that, I had to have one hole in every middle to soak it all evenly. The fact that all these holes were already punched, we just left it. Ideally now I'd rather have 2 holes in every other middle. It'll make it go faster. But since all the holes were already there, we could have plugged them, but we'll just go with it like it is. See, these are my sweet potatoes. So they look healthy. They don't really look water stressed, but it's 100 degrees and it's probably going to stay that way for a while. There is a little bit of chance of rain this weekend, but I decided might as well go ahead and kick the water on. Okay, what I'm going to do, take some standard 5-gallon buckets, and we're going to catch the water out of one hole in a minute. And I'm not going to be able to fill the bucket all the way up because the hole is lower than the bucket, so I've got several buckets. I'm going to do the best of my ability here to do it without making a mess or spilling it here. So let me get my buckets, get my timer, and then we'll start. All right, 3, 2, 1, go. When the bucket gets about half full, I'll swap it because I can't stand it up. All right, that's a minute. Okay, I've got 2 buckets about 2/3 full, so I'm going to fill one of them completely up. All right, if you can see that, that is one completely full 5-gallon bucket. So that leaves us with a piece of a bucket. Brought my measuring cup. It's probably going to be about another gallon, maybe a little bit more. Okay, that's 1 gallon. A little less than a half. Okay, so that's 6.5 gallons in 1 minute. Now, we got to figure out how many holes we got. Okay, so I'm going to multiply 6.5 times 98 holes that I've got open right now on this poly pipe. And that's 637. So what that tells me is between 625 and 650 gallons a minute is the amount of water we're getting through this poly pipe. So if we want to even figure it even further, in this zone here, okay, let's just make it a even number, 640 gallons times 60 minutes, that's 38,400 gallons per hour on the water. Now an inch of water on an acre is somewhere around 27,000 gallons. So in an hour, we're putting an inch of water on about 1.4 acres. It's a lot of water. On the watermelons, we have to be careful about not watering too much because you don't want to waterlog the watermelons. But yet, when it's 100 degrees, you don't want to leave them stressed either. So we probably won't water the watermelons again for at least probably a couple of weeks. If we get some rain in between there, then it might even be longer than that. But that's a lot of water at one time. But on the watermelons, we're not watering every middle. We're just watering on both sides of the actual planted row. So you've got, an area out here that doesn't get any water until you get over to the next actual planted row. But these sweet potatoes is on every middle. The shade that the canopy provides with the sweet potatoes and the watermelons, it keeps it moist under there. It will slow down the evaporation. On the cantaloupes where there's not as much foliage, they dry up faster. And on this field here, it's a little more hotter sand, maybe as you get closer to the levee versus getting further away from the levee. I wouldn't call it hotter sand. It tends to dry up just a little bit faster. So if we see any stress signs during the heat of the day that need water, it's usually going to be on this end, the eastern end of the field, which is where the poly pipe is. So when we're watering, sometimes we can cut it off before it gets all the way to the end if we feel like it mainly just needs it on this upper 2/3. So we just kind of play it by ear. Well, my GoPro just shut off because it was too hot, so that ought to tell you something. You don't want to water the sweet potatoes as it gets too close to harvest. I mentioned that in the last video because it'll slow up their sizing. So we'll water them maybe every other week, depending on the rainfall. A couple more times, probably 3 max, 2 at least probably. And then we'll shut it off as we get closer to harvest. And you never know what kind of hurricane you're going to be getting, tropical system, That's kind of peak hurricane season, the first part of September around Labor Day. So you got to be careful about watering and then watching, for a potential hurricane coming up. And poly pipe is 12-inch poly pipe and 10 mil thickness. So by the end of the season, we'll have enough little pinholes in it probably that it'll have run its course. We always just discard it. We can plug them with these plugs right here. But you'll get rats and stuff chewing on them, especially as hot and dry as it starts to get. If you get a very big hole, sometimes it's hard to patch it. We can use a plastic water bottle or a 16-ounce plastic bottle. Sometimes it'll fit in a hole like that, but if you get a very big hole, you gotta splice it and put in a new piece. This water's pretty cold though. It feels nice on a hot day. I'd say that probably on a normal run time with this much water volume, I'm putting about 1.5 inches of water per acre. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much water goes through here. And like I said, it will not dry up as fast as it normally would because of the canopy and the vines are so thick. It'll hold it in there for a while. All right, I guess we'll wrap it up here. I wanted to kind of address the water volume situation. I've had people ask me about it, and I'm kind of been surprised people are even that interested. But that gives you an idea of the water flow and the amount of water it takes to water these fields, and hopefully maybe you learned a little something. Thanks for watching. We'll keep putting out a video when we can. If you have not subscribed, please do. And we will see y'all next time.